Breaking news, this just into the Maximus Aviation newsroom. Southwest Airlines and popular weight loss drug manufacturer Ozempic have merged to form a brand new airline. It's being called Southwest Ozempic Airlines. Well, okay, not really. I don't want Ozempic or Southwest to sue me. But I'm pretty sure thousands of faithful Southwest customers are feeling like that just happened. Okay, so I've never flown on Southwest Airlines, if you can believe that, and I can't believe that I've never heard of this privilege Southwest affords to what they call customers of size. And I'm betting many of you fit and healthy Southwest flyers may be surprised by this as well. However, since its inception, Southwest Airlines, known for being a budget-friendly option for air travelers, has offered a special benefit to customers who require a little more room while traveling. Of course, we're talking about the plus-size passenger, or as your doctor may call it, obese. Obese isn't bad, that's the medical term. However, under Southwest's so-called customer of size policy, passengers who required more room because of their extra physical girth could book a second seat for no extra charge. That's right, an entire second seat for free, so that they did not have to infringe on their seatmates' space. But people come in all sizes, so how did Southwest police this policy? Well, the airline determined that a passenger required an additional seat if the individual's body extended over the armrest of the adjacent seat. And apparently the plus-size community of air travelers was well aware of this policy. How it worked was after the passenger would arrive, they were provided with a seat reserved sign to put on the second seat to let other passengers know the seat was off limits, which was frustrating because Southwest never had assigned seating back in the day, well, until recently, but we'll get to that in a minute. But if a normal-sized passenger wanted a specific seat and there was a reserve sign on that seat, they couldn't sit there, because that seat was actually reserved for one half of a very large passenger. Not a VIP or movie star as many may have thought, but just one half of a butt cheek. But while the plus-size passengers initially had to buy two seats to begin with, however, if that extra seat wasn't needed for the flight, Southwest would refund the cost of that seat to the larger passenger, thus they got the extra seat for free. But seriously, I didn't know any of this. On every other airline, if you need two seats, you pay for two seats. Hey, but if you've heard about this policy, please be sure to let me know down below. However, that's all changing, because as of January 2026, Southwest is doing away with a free seat for passengers of size. If they need one extra seat for their extra butt cheek, they will have to pay for it too. The major policy change will go into effect on January 27, 2026. Passengers will still be required to book two seats in advance if they are eligible for the policy, but the new rule on refunds will add restrictions to the process. At least one seat on the flight must remain open. Both seats are to be purchased in the same fare class, and all refund requests must be submitted within 90 days of booking. However, this new customer of size policy change is no sudden coincidence. The change will coincide with Southwest's transition from its historically open seating model to assigned seating. As part of this change, passengers will also be expected to pay a fee in such cases as if they decide to upgrade their seats to a preferred location, such as extra legroom or in the front of the plane bulkhead seating. But it sounds like this new system will not only cost more for people of size, but passengers of any size as well. Well, I gotta say, I can't believe it took Southwest this long to make these changes. Southwest was losing out on a lot of revenue that every other airline in the world was making. Okay, so then what will this plus-size policy change mean for the normal-size flyer? What will the impact be on non-larger passengers? Well, in practice, non-larger passengers have always indirectly benefited from the customer of size policy for years as well. The policy spared all involved the awkwardness that comes from sitting uncomfortably cramped and crammed against the window or armrest because of a lack of space. No longer relying on the policy to add some extra personal space might make future flights feel a little bit more crammed to everyone on board. Well, of course it will. Airlines are a business, not a safe room for passengers' conveniences. But these policy changes are among a more overarching strategic shift at Southwest, led by the airline's new management. So what are some of the other historic changes the budget airline has been making recently? Well, to start with, one of the most jarring updates was the beloved 2 check bags fly free policy, because those days are gone. Effective back on May 28 of 2025, Southwest introduced tiered baggage fees. $35 for the first check bag, $45 for the second. Free check baggage is still available, but only for A-list preferred frequent flyers. Customers flying on the Choice Extra fare, these are A-list members and co-branded credit card holders, who now receive just one free check bag. Along with seat assignments and baggage fees, Southwest is completely rebranding its fare structure too. The Wanna Get Away fare is now simply called the Basic. Wanna Get Away Plus is now called Standard. The Anytime fare is now called Choice Preferred, and Business Select is now called Choice Extra. But most shocking is that the basic fares, once Southwest's pride and joy, are now the most restrictive option, with no same-day flight changes, no standby access, and flight credits expire in 6 months. However, the higher-tier Choice Extra fare includes all the old perks, 2 bags, early boarding, flight flexibility, and now premium seat access. And travelers hoping to save money will need to weigh those savings against increasingly rigid rules and add-on fees. And January 2026 will see the end of Southwest's historic and favorite open boarding policy. Starting on January 27, Southwest will abandon its open seating model. The choose-your-own-seat approach has been its hallmark since the 1970s. In its place, there will be assigned seats categorized into 3 paid tiers. Extra legroom seats at the front of the cabin, preferred seats in mid-cabin or aisle positions, standard seats which cover the rest. And this new approach will be integrated into a broader shift in fare bundles, which Southwest says are designed to offer more choice. But for frequent flyers, this change marks the end of a long-standing tradition and a step toward the same revenue-driven model the airline once proudly rejected. Additionally, the new boarding system consists of 9 tiers, not 3 letters. The days of lining up by ABC group are also coming to an end. Southwest is introducing a 9-tier boarding process resembling the zone-based systems used by Delta and American. Your boarding order will be determined by a mix of things such as fare class, seat selection, loyalty status, credit card perks. In other words, the more you spend, the earlier you board. However, while this may simplify things for some passengers, many worry it will make an already chaotic process more complicated and even more commercialized. But hey, like I said, an airline is a business, not a charity, and Southwest needs to make a profit. And finally, the last change was the first one we spoke about, and that is the change to the plus-size free seat option to so-called passengers of size. And going forward, families, leisure travelers, and budget-conscious flyers and longtime loyalists to Southwest's inclusive fare model will now face the same kind of baggage charges they once avoided by booking with Southwest. But most of Southwest's longtime passengers have been lamenting some of these changes as contributing to the watering down of the airline's brand in order to conform to industry standards. But Southwest Airlines says the changes are needed to remain competitive in the dynamic airline market. For years, Southwest built its reputation on simplicity, affordability, and transparency. But as the industry changes, so too has the carrier. Company executives say these changes are about meeting evolving customer expectations, increasing flexibility, and remaining competitive. Critics argue it's the death of a legacy, with Southwest shedding what made it unique in favor of short-term revenue. But whatever your view, one thing is clear. The Southwest Airlines of 2026 won't look or feel anything like the Southwest you grew up flying. Well, that's all I have on this subject. Now it's time for you, plus-size passengers or regular-size passengers, to let me know down below. And until next time, as always, this is Maximus.